body and or spirit for our opening hymn, number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. Welcome to our service. I especially want to welcome our visitors today, both on campus as well as on YouTube. We invite our visitors to participate in any of the service, any of the events at our congregation. Technology. And we welcome you to find out more about Unitarian Universalism as well as this congregation. We invite you to considering registering in our virtual guest book, which you can find via a link on the homepage at uusrq.org. Or if you're here in person, you can sign up at the welcome table right outside the sanctuary. And if you do, you will get a weekly email telling you about all the events that are upcoming and some emails with Zoom links to other programs that we have. As well, we invite you to join us for coffee and conversations after service, and we look forward to getting to know each other. I do want to let you know, folks, there are plenty of seats up front if any of you want to have a little more space to lounge around. We have a couple of special announcements. Do you want to make your announcement? I'll make. Okay. So in the theme of spiritual vitality, which is today's topic, UUSRQ, Unitarian Universalists of Sarasota, is offering a drop-in chalice group on the second and fourth Sunday of the month from 12:15 to 1:30 in the library room. So just enough time to get a little lunch and or some food and join. Chalice groups are small groups of individuals who form deeper bonds through practicing intentional listening. It is not a discussion group, but a safe, confidential, supportive space for people to share their authentic self on topics that touch them spiritually or in their lives. So please drop in when you can, and there is no long-term commitment. It's just a way to experience. If you really like it, there are long-term groups, but this is just a chance for you to explore it. I find them very powerful way to get to know people as well as to get to know yourself. And one last announcement, the Democracy Action Team would like to let you know there is, I believe, a potluck today after the service, but during that time as well, the Democracy Action Team will be writing and stamping postcards to voters, yes on 4, in the library after service. If you don't know where the library is, it's the last door on the east wing on this side. East, west, they're all constructs, right? Okay, anyway, I now am so proud and happy to invite up Brie Rivera, returning to share her gifts of music with us.
Forgot my cable. Fourth time here and I'm nervous. Thank you. Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on a tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. Dragonfly out in the sun, you know what I mean, don't you know? Butterflies so having fun, you know what I mean. Sleep in peace when day is done, that's what I mean. And this whole world is a new world, and a bold world for me. For me. Stars when you shine, you know how I feel. Scent of the pine, you know how I feel. Oh, freedom is mine, and I know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I feel good. I feel good.
opening reading is something I have entitled Inner Light. We meet on holy ground, for that place is holy where we meet each other, where lives touch, where loves move, where hope stirs. How strong is our need for one another, our silent beckoning to our neighbors, our invitations to share life and death together, our welcome into the lives of those we meet, and their welcome into our own. We kindle our chalice, a symbol of our inner light, and let that light shine always around and before us. As we light our chalice, please join me now in affirming our value statement of transformation, which will be up on the screen. Transformation, thank you. We adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically.
Good morning, everyone. Today's story is You Have Spirit, written and illustrated by Kathleen June Mooring Fidel. So Kay Fidel was an artist, writer, preschool teacher, and had a degree in creative writing and art from Eckerd College. She also was a member of this congregation before she passed and is now interred in our memorial garden with her husband. Her story. When we are full of spirit, we run and jump and sing. We feel our spirit within us in almost everything. Except we might forget it in the loud or gloomy days when bad things tend to happen that scare us in many ways. But we can find our spirit in the sun. Just look around at all the many helpful things and people to be found. When caught in darkest places, when things not right or true, we can always leave them and find what's right to do. In the dark, we might be lonely, and that doesn't seem much fun, but we learn that darkness lightens and is followed by the sun. It's hard to know what's right, but we'll find our way, I'm sure, and choose a path or road we can easily endure. Our spirits may have holes from troubles and mistakes, but the holes can be reminders we'll be stronger when day breaks. So when we are afraid and things go very wrong, we can raise our spirits to help us all along. We learn to like ourselves and see that others too are really just as lonely and trying to improve. We're in this world together, all different but the same, to do the best we can over and over again. You have a kindly spirit that goes everywhere with you. In the morning when you're waking, they'll tell you what to do. But they're quiet and they whisper. Never shouts or call out loud. They'll be there when you want them, either if you're alone or in a crowd. And when you're thankful, you can tell them. Spirit likes to know you care. Spirit likes to hear there's comfort in their presence everywhere. They remind you of the goodness that is forever strong, even in the awful things that seem so very wrong. They know when you are hurting, and they are with you when you cry. They remind you that your lessons are sometimes hard to try, but when you really learn them, and you'll have new ones to do, and be ready for the others that are easier for you. And so our gentle spirit tells us every day that be we big or little, we have help along the way. You have spirit. So the spirit sprite images Kay used evolved during her long career as an artist, and was influenced by her unceasing study of life through her interest in Jung's psychology and world religions. She got her spiritual vitality in many ways from many things, but Kay and I were similar in that we both got our vitality through being with, learning with, and sharing with the children and youth in our community. This year, our elementary classes will be learning about other religious and cultural traditions using the Holidays and Holy Days curriculum, which is full of learning and art and games and fun. Our youth will be diving into Crossing Paths, formerly known as Neighboring Faiths or the Church Around the Corner. There, they will explore several world religions, spiritual belief systems, and the answers to the big questions on spirit. But for either of these to happen, I need volunteers to create spiritual vitality for themselves and those of our children and youth by becoming a class leader or an assistant. It's very easy. If you have any religious background, spiritual practice, or if you simply have a spirit, you qualify. If you can read or have a sense of humor, you too qualify. So come volunteer one Sunday this year, or even better, one Sunday a month, and find out how you can help after the service in the courtyard. I'll be right by the coffee. Thank you. I now invite any children to go with me to the West Wing for our first lesson, and the youth to the teen room in the East Wing. We have a leader in the courtyard to show you the way. Thank you very much.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again, because salvation's lovely when it seemed what I was sleeping in the vision that was planted in my brain. Still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone, neath the halo of a street lamp. I turned my collar to the cold and damp, when my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. People talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs that voices never shared, and no one dared disturb the sound of silence. Fools said, I do not know. Silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my arms that I might reach you. But my words, like silent raindrops, fell and echoed in the wells of silence. And the people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made, and the sign flashed out its warning in the words that it was forming. The sign said the words on the front, but in the subway walls and tenement halls, and whisper in the sound of silence.
Thank you so much. By the way, I know most of us have probably heard that from Simon and Garfunkel, but there is a cover of that by a group called Disturbed. And by the name of the group, you can imagine it's a little more intense, actually. So now I'm going to do a little, for our centering words, I'm going to do something a little different, a little guided meditation. And so I encourage you to sit quietly. Just relax, maybe shake your arms out a little bit, let your shoulders drop. Take a deep breath in. Just a couple of breaths. I invite you to recognize the beauty around you in whatever way that you notice beauty. Whether that is a smile on someone's face, maybe you like to watch the foliage outside, maybe one of the beautiful decorations on the walls, or perhaps the beauty of some imperfection. To let this image put you in a more peaceful frame of mind. And do whatever helps you to be open, aware, and relaxed. If you're comfortable with closing your eyes, or maybe most of the way, and then gazing softly at something, or looking out the window. Take a couple of deep breaths. Notice if there's any tension in your body. Relax it. As you sit quietly, I invite you to recall a time when you felt spiritually grounded, or perhaps just felt a calmness in your life. A time when you felt you were the person you were called to be. Just sit quietly for a moment and let that memory rise up. As you sit with this memory, recall sights and sounds and smells associated with this situation. Picture the faces of the other people who were involved, if there were. Recall how you were feeling both physically and emotionally. What were the characteristics of your experiences? What emotion comes to your mind? As we enter into a time of silence now, contemplate this, or just experience the quiet and see what arises within you. You'd think after 2 years I would remember not to bump my head into that. I guess I was not being mindful. So, as I am often looking for information to think about things about a service, as I normally do, will ask a question on Facebook to people. And I asked Facebook, how would you describe spirituality? Not surprisingly, I have like 3,600 friends on Facebook. There's a broad range of answers. So, from some of my Christian friends, spirituality meant Jesus as their Lord and Savior, or the Holy Spirit giving them guidance to find God's will. On the other end of the spectrum was an atheist friend who said the word meant nothing to them. But a large swath of responses spoke to spirituality as the awareness of the interconnectedness of all things. A large number of responses described feeling spiritual as connecting themselves to something larger than themselves, whether that be nature, community, the universe, divinity. I went back to my statement of theology. When you want to become a minister, you have to hand in, all this paperwork, and they ask you what your statement of theology is. And I think it still speaks to what I mean by spirituality. What I wrote was, and I quote, "I have had personal experiences that lead me to believe that there is something that makes us interconnected and interdependent with the rest of reality. In deep states of meditation and walking a labyrinth, I have felt this connection to the larger universe. I believe when I am really in touch with my inner self, I am connected to the universe, and I see others and the environment around me more clearly. I become comfortable with who I am, and due to this, I am not defensive, and thus, I am open to hearing and accepting stories and wisdom of others and connecting with them. It is in the awakening of these connections with others that I find I can create meaning in life," end quote. And I think it is interesting that in the labyrinth, it was an immediate, what I will call, mountaintop experience. I only did it sort of as a thank you. My friends, this was back in Orlando, built a labyrinth. And really, I just did it to honor their work. I wasn't really doing it intentionally. And I just had a very powerful experience walking the labyrinth. Now, with meditation, it took me years of practicing meditation, and that helped me form my spiritual life. Meditation helps me live my spirituality on a day-to-day basis. Ultimately, for me, that is what counts, not what we do when we are alone, when no one else is around. As I've said in the past, it is easy to be a holy person sitting alone on the top of a mountain. It's hard to be a saint in the city. So now there is a power, I will say, there is a power. I don't want to dismiss that, being alone on a mountaintop, right? There is a power in silent contemplation. That's why we do it every week here, right? Sitting alone on top of a mountain, whether that's metaphorically or literally. I have done both. But what would be the purpose of staying alone our entire life? Right? The question is, how do we act when we come off the mountain and are in the thick of it? Right? Can we still recognize that interdependence? Can we tap into that heart of compassion? Can we remain open and non-judgmental? And I will say, even after 40 years of practice, some days are easier than others. Jack Kornfield, an American Buddhist teacher, said, and I quote, "True spirituality is not a removal or escape from life. It is an opening, a seeing of the world with a deeper vision that is less self-centered." I also want to be clear, I'm not saying that there's never a time for escapism. I do that usually at night. I watch the Met game on TV. That is pure escapism. There is a time for that. Self-care sometimes requires that. I also will quote Anagarika Dharmapala, a late 19th century Buddhist missionary that was one of the first to bring Eastern meditation to the United States. And they said, and I quote, they didn't cough, "The emancipation from the idea of self is the real bliss. It is ignorance that makes us think that there is bliss in the idea of I am. People talk of spirituality, and yet how few they are who know the immense sacrifice that they are expected to make," end quote. So I want you to think about that, right? Sacrifice is part of spirituality. Once you realize you are part of something larger than yourself, that you are interdependent with the web of all existence, then we cannot just look away when other parts of existence are suffering. For if we realize others are suffering, and if we are interdependent, that means it is a sign that we are suffering in some way ourselves. And if we turn away from others' suffering without acting, we have to face the fact that our spirituality is narcissistic. And this is why Unitarians, Universalists, and now Unitarian Universalists historically and continue to connect spirituality to bringing justice to the world, to bring the mystical into the everyday, to create an equitable world where all people will have enough, and there is enough for all of us to be whole, if we are willing to share. Let our separate boats not drift apart, but rather come together to shine our lights, to help each of us navigate the uncertain paths ahead of all of us. Now, you know, each week, you may not realize this, but each week we do participate in a spiritual practice of sharing when we take our offering. So please be as generous as you can. For those online or those here on your cell phone, there is a link to donate in the description of the YouTube video, as well as the QR code on the order of service. Let the sacred time begin. next reading is from Albert Camus, The Return to Tapassi. Violence and hatred dry up the heart itself. The long fight for justice exhausts the love that nevertheless gave birth to it. In the clamor in which we live, love is impossible and justice does not suffice. But in order to keep justice from shriveling up like the beautiful orange fruit containing nothing but bitter, dry pulp, one must keep intact in oneself a freshness, a cool wellspring of joy. Love the day that escapes injustice and return to combat having won that light. O light, this is the cry of all characters of ancient drama, brought face to face with their fate. This last resort was ours too, and I knew it now. In the middle of winter, I at last discovered that there was in me an invincible summer. And now I welcome back up for more invincible music, Bree Rivera.
The sunlight hurts my eyes, and something with a warning love bears heavy on my mind. But then I look at you, and the world's alright with me. Yeah, just one look at you, and I know it's gonna be a lovely day. Yes, it's gonna be a lovely day. When the day that lies ahead of me seems impossible to face, when someone else instead of me, yeah, always seems to know the way. But then I look at you, and the world's alright with me. Yeah. Just one look at you, and I know it's gonna be a lovely day. Yes, it's gonna be a lovely day. A lovely day, 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 a lovely day, lovely day, a lovely day, lovely day, lovely day, lovely day, lovely day, a lovely day, a lovely day, 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 lovely day.
Thank you. Okay, so also in my Facebook post, I asked people what their spiritual practices were, and different people indicated, obviously, they use different spiritual practices. There is no one-size-fits-all when it comes to spiritual practices. There's no one or right or wrong way to do a spiritual practice, and that is why, starting this October, I will be leading a once-a-month class giving people the opportunity to experience different spiritual practices and to delve deeper into a contemplative life. I've had several in my life, unintentional and intentional spiritual practices. Growing up, I attended temple services every week with my parents, and that in and of itself is a spiritual discipline. Right? Although I might not have appreciated it as a child, but I will say, coming to worship every week, like many of you do, that is in and of itself a spiritual practice, to put yourself in an environment, to be moved, to be contemplative, and to learn. So I also went to Hebrew school 2 afternoons a week to study the Torah until I was 15. Where we would argue about the minutiae of different Torah readings. And I would call that maybe an intellectual spiritual practice. As I mentioned earlier, I have had an almost 40-year meditation practice. The last 15 years, I have practiced in the tradition of mindfulness of Vietnamese teacher Thich Nhat Hanh, as well as a little Japanese Soto Zen tradition on the side. And I'll be honest, right? It's mindfulness, and yet I still bump my head on there. It's called practice, right? Because we are practicing how to live in the world. Doesn't mean we're always successful, but more often than not, hopefully we are. And although I often meditate alone, now, since moving to Florida, I find there is an energy and a deeper experience that happens in a group that does not happen when I meditate alone. Perhaps it is the energy that is generated when multiple people meditate together, if you are of a more mystical bent, or perhaps it is because we know we are accountable to those who are there with us. And you don't want to be the person that's seen opening your eyes and looking at your watch to see how much longer you have to meditate. If you can see this picture just made me crack up. If you can't read it, it shows a monk meditating, thinking, has the timekeeper died? Now, this is probably more often the reality for many who do spiritual practices. It's never going to be good enough, and we always think we should be doing better, but you just have to accept where you are in any given moment. But for anybody who has meditated, and I can say this happens to me, it can be hard to keep track of time. Once a number of years ago when I was meditating at home, I used a timer on my cell phone, and it turns out the cat accidentally stepped on it and turned the timer off, or perhaps maybe I said it improperly at the time. Who knows? It's a mystery. The timer didn't work. And I'm sitting there going, when is this going to end? When is the timer going to go off? And because at that point I had tried to discipline myself, and then after a while, Jan came in and said, it's been an hour, Jay. When I am sitting and meditating, my mind does wander. That's a natural thing, and wonder how much time is left. And meditation, and really any spiritual practice, is about training the mind to understand reality. And by doing so, it helps us to be mindful of our thoughts and actions. You know, when I first started meditating, when I did look at the timer, I always thought I'd been meditating much longer than I actually was. And that's why that cartoon was so relevant, right? Although maybe once the cat steps on the timer, but too often I spent time and energy wondering when the timer was going off. So I developed a discipline about trusting the timer and not looking at the timer and just focusing on my breath and breathing. We often worry about things that we have no control over, or we imagine things that aren't real that cause us to suffer. And the goal of spiritual practice is to get us out of the head and into the heart, to hear our conscience speak, and to have the courage to let it lead us. Now, for many, this is culturally driven, the type of spiritual practice. I know there are many people who have told me over the years, like meditation just doesn't work for them. But for some, it could just be silence. For others, it may be a walk in the woods. For others, it may be music, such as singing in the choir, which I believe, Don, choir practice starts when? Last week. Thank you. Wednesday nights? Okay, so if you are interested in practicing a spiritual practice of singing in the choir, or if you just want to sing in the choir in general, Wednesday nights, please stop by. For others, it may be drumming or prayer or chanting. The key is to clear your mind of distractions, right? To listen to that still small voice within. And by cultivation of the heart, I do not mean desire, but an inner knowing. A place where you know who you are, and so you can act without defensiveness. A place where you can act from your best self. A place where you can act. When you act, you are what I would call in the zone. You know, Michael Jordan used to talk about it. He would shoot. He didn't think about his mechanics of shooting. He just shot the ball. When I write, I just write. I don't think about or organize. I just write, and then I go back and edit most of the time. But you don't have to think about every little thing, but rather what you do and say comes naturally to you because it is you. And we have to remember to take the time to fill up our own gas tank, or we will find ourselves out of gas on the highway of life. Grit and tenacity will only take us so far. And that is why we come together as a community to offer our gifts to each other, to fill each other up with life, to care for each other, right? To love each other, to connect with our source of being, whatever that may be for you, and to discern it, and to share it, and to allow it to guide us in community. And we need to continue to drink from this well of self-reflection and continue to answer the bells that ring for us in whatever way we can, in the best way we know how. How can each of us be authentic to who we are and what we believe without worry about what the person next to us thinks? And that is what I think all of us are really searching for, to be our authentic selves and to express ourselves authentically in the most grounded, contemplative way. We want to create a community where everyone can be accepted for who they are. It's hard to always live in this place. Sometimes the world we live in makes it hard. But it is the hard that makes it beautiful. And when I do experience, there is a calmness, a knowing that what is being done is right. And that feeling, that place of wholeness, can be cultivated. Sometimes it requires us to get out of our own way, actually, to break out of our conditioned life. Ultimately, spiritual vitality does come down to seeing yourself as part of something larger than yourself. For some, that might be a divinity. For others, it might be an ideal, such as justice. Others, it might be wisdom. For others, congregational and religious life. Seeing ourselves as part of something larger than just ourselves, requires us to let go of our image of ourselves as being in control. Right? It's about letting go of the ego. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't have ego. We need a healthy ego to survive. But often the ego, and thus ourselves, becomes the sole focal point of our life. And we end up acting in ways that harms others, in a way to fortify our ego. As one of my Buddhist teachers, Roshi Joan Halifax, said, soft front, firm back. Soft front to be open to hearing and accepting the stories and wisdom of others and connecting with them, and a firm back to know what our boundaries are and to respect those boundaries. Because not everything goes. A lot of things go, more here than in other religions, but not everything. We have some boundaries. Another one of my teachers synchronistically compared an individual or an organism or an organization to a semi-permeable membrane in our body. That's a statement I never thought I would hear in a service. If we are too rigid, so semi-permeable membranes in our body, right, that's how things get in and out of our membranes. If we're too rigid and don't have the necessary openings, nutrients cannot get in and toxins cannot get out. And if that happens, the cell will atrophy and shrivel up or explode. But if the membrane is semi-permeable, maintaining healthy boundaries, not letting in the toxins, right? And then life can flourish. And taking nutrients in and letting out toxins. And that is, I think, what we want. To have a life that can flourish. Being semi-permeable may seem counterintuitive or new to you. Think about the times that you have felt threatened. Right? We tend to tighten up. We get hard. We close in on ourselves. We circle the wagons. Our lizard mind takes over. And we get defensive. So I invite you, when you feel threatened, to not resist that feeling. This does not mean you roll over and die, but being soft allows you to bypass that lizard brain response and connect to your true inner self. Being soft allows you to see and understand the situation, allows you to make decisions from a place of calmness and knowing. Being soft allows you to see the right path and to act with courage. Because when we act with courage, we are acting from authenticity. In the end, we are known by our fruits. We are known by how we act in the world. Are we compassionate, caring people, yearning for justice? The journey is both inward and outward. If it's only inward, if we are only self-reflective, then we risk passivity. If we are only outward and do not do the inward work, then we will surely burn out. The UUs of Sarasota can be a school for learning compassion and hope and action, where we each support each other on our journey together. Our lives, the Unitarian Universalists of Sarasota, the world, are calling us and need us. There is so much at stake. Let us answer that call. Let us answer that call with love. May it be so. Please rise. Thank you. Please rise in body and or spirit. Thank you. For our hymn 1024, when the Spirit says do, please feel free to dance or whatever the Spirit tells you to do. Our closing words are from Parker Palmer, Let Your Life Speak. Our deepest calling is to grow into our own authentic selfhood, whether or not it conforms to some image of who we ought to be. As we do so, we will not only find the joy that every human being seeks, we will also find the path of authentic service in the world. True vocation joins self and service, as Reverend Frederick Buechner asserts when he defines vocation as the place where deep gladness meets the world's deep need. My hope for all of you is to find your deep gladness. Please join me now as we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, and not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you all your presence here today. And go forth, be good, and do.